back at WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. Happy Memorial Day weekend to everyone out there celebrating, taking some downtime, spending time with the family, cookouts or whatnot. But all of us hockey people, we're all in this. We've all wondered what this was going to be like for the modern generation and for the Ovechkin generation. Well, it's here, and it's not Winnipeg or San Jose or Nashville or any of those places. This place didn't even have a team last year. Las Vegas, all eyes headed there. It'll be 100 outside. It'll be chilly in the rink, and Joe Beninati will be there, not calling the games for NBC Sports and Washington, but everything in between, before, after, during, all that stuff. They're keeping you busy out there. I know you'd rather be calling the games, and I know we go through that, and all of us that do this love to be a part of it, but this is... this is what we've all been waiting for, this opportunity to see what Alex Ovechkin, all fuzzy looking, is going to look like carrying a Stanley Cup around. We might get that, Joe. We might.
It's been a long, long wait, and it's been wonderful to, at least in the recent last few days since the team pushed past Tampa and won the Eastern Conference. Nestor, I think it's just been great to listen to a lot of people all of a sudden changing that narrative that's been on Alex Ovechkin for so long about not being able to win the big one and not being able to represent and pull his team through to a Stanley Cup final. Well, those things have changed in recent days, and now they're going to have the biggest opportunities of their collective sports lives to go out there and challenge a Vegas Golden Knights team that, honestly, Nestor, I know we're going to talk about it, they've made me look bad the entire season. I said they wouldn't be a winner. I said there was no way they were going to win the Pacific. I said L.A. would beat them in the first round. I said there was absolutely no chance for them to overcome a great Winnipeg team. They've made me look bad all the way through, and you better believe they are a formidable squad. They pounce on you like a pack of wild dogs, and I think the Caps are looking forward to this challenge. It's going to be a significant one.
Joe, let's talk about the Caps. Just, soup to nuts here, top to bottom. Let's start with Trotz and sort of the calming of this thing. And I know they had him do the final skate before Game 7. I've known him forever. I know you've known him through the game. I covered him and carried a little notebook like this around back in 1991-92 when he's figuring his way. To see him at this level exhibit that sort of calm, to come in where this team had gone through a number of coaches, many of them who had played the game at the highest level, like a Dale Hunter and Adam Oates, but there's been something about him, and it's hard for me because I've been with the guy for 30 years and I can make excuses and stuff, but I think he's starting to get that what's coming to him. I texted him the day of Game 7, and I said, it's your time. It's just your time. And I think for people that love Barry Trotz, this has been a fun thing to see, to watch him be the leader of this.
Absolutely, and I know you go back a long way with him, so you remember how intense he was. And it's not to say that he's not intense now. There's been some mellowing for sure, but even Barry will tell you that there's no way he could step on the pedal the same way he did back in his Baltimore days or his early Nashville days. Nowadays, there's been a little bit more flexibility shown, and I'm not saying that Barry Trotz is going to ride off into the sunset, cup or no cup, after this series and say that's it. I'm not saying that, but I know that he's thought about it. I know he's at that end of his career, and that he's definitely, what would the expression be, on the back nine or deep into the back nine. This is a wonderful chance for him. It's unfortunate, or depending upon how you look at it, I call it unfortunate that there has been no contract resolved for the future here, that there's been no extension. But in a way, I think that's led to Barry being a little bit more flexible in his coaching over the last 6 weeks, and that's helped him earn even more faith. Not that he didn't have it, but he's earned even more faith from the players that this is a coach and a coaching staff that's ready to do exactly what we need to get us all the way to the top of the mountain. And their coaching has been terrific in these first 3 series. There have been adjustments made all throughout, and I firmly believe that in the time leading up to Game 1 and on, that they'll get a good book together on the Vegas Golden Knights. This team will have a good blueprint in place, and Barry's the guy who puts his stamp on it. And right now, all of his decisions, if not all of his decisions that he's made in recent weeks, have been spot on.
Joe Beninati is our guest. You can follow him on Twitter at JoeBPXP. That's play-by-play. He'll be calling lots of the pre and the post, along with the entire NBC Sports crew that we've gotten to know over the course of the years, in Alan May and Rob Carlin and Locker, and all the guys will be checking in and out in Vegas. You'll be able to follow along on Twitter and Facebook before and after the games. And Joe, when I wrote the book on the Ravens 5.5 years ago, really, as an author of a story to say, all right, what's the real narrative here? Where did the story take a turn? I guess I could make that case for Trotz. You could make that case for the day they drafted Ovechkin. You could certainly make a case for Braden Holtby as being a difference maker in this thing. And but I think for the greatest part of this story is going to be where the two general managers come from, in McClellan and McPhee, and how they were tied at the hip, and how McPhee has almost drafted every player in this series one way or another, right?
Pretty incredible. I think it's 12 of the current Caps, and obviously he's the architect of the Golden Knights in their expansion year. And he and Brian Nestor, they go all the way back to junior hockey days together. They were collegiate teammates together. I believe they played pro together. Brian learned at the hand of George from a management standpoint. He was his acting assistant GM for a number of years. And I'm sure their friendship runs very, very deep. I'm also sure that when George was relieved of his duties, went elsewhere in 2014, that had to be tough for the relationship for himself and Brian McClellan. And I, from what I gather, listening and talking to people who know the two of them well, they're back on good terms. There's going to be a definite mutual respect between these two managers. It's one of countless different storylines that we can delve into as the Caps and Vegas Golden Knights get together over the next couple of weeks. But it's really, really interesting. George, from a personnel standpoint, he may be the lead best advanced scout for the Golden Knights. He knows a lot of the Caps inside and out.
Joe, for Ovechkin and the weight of the world on him that I have felt in previous years, where some years he wasn't in the best shape, some years he wasn't in the best health, as far as being healthy late in the year, I walked through the bowels of the Ice Palace, or whatever they call it this week down there, and watched them having their kick around. I almost interrupted it and watched the amount of fun they were having before a Game 7, that stress, that dread. You've been on a lot of buses and a lot of planes and trains and automobiles with these guys, and I'm sure at various points you've sensed that there might have been some tightness afterwards, or some less than optimal health, or how guys are playing, or how things are trending. Everything about this has been calm from me, from my eyes seeing this during the Columbus series, that there is sort of some veteran resolve of all these disappointments and stuff that a lot of the fans carry around. I don't think that's the mindset of these guys at all, and some of these guys aren't associated with some of that stuff, being new to the party, but by and large, they all know the history. They've all been taught a history lesson a year or two over the number of years. That didn't feel to be so heavy this year for some reason.
The roller coaster hasn't been as high and as deep and as narrow and as twisting this time around, and I think a lot of it has to do, Nestor, with vanquishing the Penguins in Game 6. When Yevgeny Kuznetsov scores off that little usher-ahead pass from Ovechkin, I just get the sense that there was an enormous amount of relief from the veteran core that's been together, that's lived through the tortured playoffs past. The new guys, it's amazing to talk to Jacob Vrana, 1 year in as an NHLer and one Stanley Cup final. It's an easy game. It's a simple game, right? He realizes it. He watches the veterans. He knows what those guys have gone through, but he himself doesn't have that experience, doesn't have that weighing down upon his chest. I just got the sense, even in the Columbus series, when they were able to rally from the 0-2 deficit after spotting the Blue Jackets a two games lead in the series after losing at home, that this team wasn't going to be phased, that it wasn't going to go through the, oh, woe is me, it's going to happen again, the sky is falling. They rallied back, they win. There were some adjustments made. Those adjustments carried over to round 2. And even though you lost an early game in the Pittsburgh series, a bad 5 minutes, that was not going to cripple the team. And you found a way to beat them on their own ice in an elimination game in Game 6, and you didn't have 3 of your top forwards. Afterwards, I could just sense that the team was in a healthier place mentally, more than anything, than they've been in a long, long time. and I knew that they would be able to bounce back after dropping 3 in a row to Tampa in the series. I just did. They have shown that bounce-back ability, that resolve the whole time, and I think a lot of it has to do with being freed up mentally. They are freed up mentally, and I fully expect Vegas to challenge them in the Cup final. Things are not going to go your way. This is not going to be a 4-game sweep either side, but I just think that if the Caps are faced with adversity now in a Stanley Cup final, they will deal with it so much better than they would have in the past for whatever reason.
Well, things aren't perfect. I mean, obviously, Nick Backstrom's right hand is not optimal. It's not where they are. Oshie took a shot off the foot. Obviously, what happened to Devontae Smith-Pelly was frightening for a moment, and I watched him walk out of the building after Game 7 and looked to be all well. But the one thing I also liked that I saw the other night leaving Tampa was how hard this was to win Game 6 and 7, and how they walked out of there, and there was a sense of relief and pride and all that. But I actually went to your compadre, Rob Carlin, before the third period and said, are they going to be like bathing in champagne afterwards? Should I worry about my sport coat? Should I should I get because I didn't know how excited they would be afterward. I've been around baseball too much. Boy, there was none of that. It was very, very businesslike and professional and very like, we'll skate around a little bit, we'll get happy, but let's get out of here and get rested up. We got to play hockey again in Vegas on Sunday.
Totally businesslike. And Nestor, when you think about it, the Prince of Wales trophy is very, very nice, but all they've won is a T-shirt and a hat. What they really want is waiting for them, and that requires 4 more wins. And I've loved this about this team. They've been matter-of-fact about shift to shift, period to period, game to game. And, yeah, they're the Eastern Conference champions, and they should take pride in that. And as a community here in the area, I know that the fans are very, very appreciative of that performance, but it's not the ultimate goal, and they've had that in mind from the beginning. This team knows it was constructed with Stanley Cup in mind, and now they're going to get a chance to play for it. That's what I really wanted the most for this group, Nestor, was the chance. There was a chance they were going to lose Game 7 in Tampa. I didn't think they deserved that. They deserved the opportunity to compete for the Cup, whether it be against Vegas or whomever, but they knew it was going to be Vegas, and now this is a very, very interesting series between two teams that don't know a lot about each other, and I think that that's going to play stylistically into being a really fun and entertaining series for us all to watch.
Joe, I think everybody knows your call of hockey. Maybe they know some parts of your background, or they've caught you calling a lacrosse game or any of your other sports pursuits, or they follow you on Twitter or whatnot. But, I think for people right now that don't know a lot about hockey, in our audience who may be a Ravens fan or an Oriole fan, or people even on my Facebook, that, I know they're not a lifer hockey fan, but they are sniffing this out over the next couple of weeks. And let's be honest, what the hell else you got to do on Monday night and Wednesday night and Saturday? As this thing starts to unfold, it's 1-1, 2-2, as there's ebbs and flows and penalties, I think the ratings for this are going to be a shot in the arm locally and regionally. But then there's that aftermath of, well, it was fun for a couple of weeks, but this is a chance to turn not just Washington into a hockey town or any of those cliches or hyperbole, anything you give it to, but turn people into hockey fans at whatever level that would be, whether they go to a game or start to watch or get into it or buy a jersey or buy a hat or want to be excited about it in some way. Those of us who love hockey all came at it differently. Why do you still love hockey, and how did you come to it?
This particular series or this time of year is incredible for the hockey fan because they realize the drama that's involved. Anybody who spends, whether it be a period in front of the television or who's lucky enough to get a ticket, the casual fan goes to a Stanley Cup playoff game and he's riveted, or she is riveted, and should be. If they're a sport fan, this is an easy game to get your arms around. For me, as a young sports fan growing up in New York on Long Island, I love the sport of hockey to play it. I put on skates first when I was 4 years old. I love to play goal. And it just so happened that within the time that I was learning the game from a formative standpoint, the Rangers and Islanders, the Rangers were the big team. They were my father's favorite team. And I just loved watching the game with my dad in his study during the time at home, and I grew to love it. And by the time I was in high school, the Islanders were going through their dynasty run, and it just became intoxicating to me, the speed of the game, the balance, the creativity these athletes have. And then as I've gotten involved into professional sports and collegiate sports as a broadcaster, I marvel at what these guys are doing, and I always tell the sport fan there isn't anything really like the Stanley Cup playoffs in that it's the most arduous task for 8 weeks. If you're lucky enough, this is a 2-month-long venture. And the team that I'm most closely associated with has only been there once before, and I was lucky enough to be there in 1998. And I remember how Baltimore, Washington area reacted to it. It's going to be even more special this time because in that time since, you've had an Alex Ovechkin era, a Rock the Red era, where this team has been so incredibly good for so long, regular season, and has slipped and fallen at the worst times in the playoffs. Well, now you're there. You can almost see the Holy Grail. You're right there. And for those folks who've learned the game in the last 10 or 15 years, this is the ultimate. This is the coup de grace. And if you're
getting me excited, Joe, when you're talking about it just being right there. That's getting me worked up now. Come on.
Nestor, it's that close.
It's that close.
It's that close. And for all that we've wanted, I was backstage. You were in the building. I was backstage downstairs for the celebration that was going on. I could hear them on the bench. I saw them spill over into the locker room hallway. I watched the coaching staff come together. I watched the ownership group pile in, and I was so incredibly happy for them. And it was all smile on my face. The next day, with every highlight that I saw and every special hug between Backstrom and Ovechkin, I could barely keep the tears from flowing down my face. It means that much to me because I've been so closely associated to it, and I know what fans are all about. They pour their hearts and souls into this, and now you have the chance. All I want them to do is be especially competitive against Vegas. I think they can beat Vegas, and then, wow, what a party we're going to have.
Boy, the storylines from the general managers, Joe, right on down to the fact that Grubauer started this thing, right? Like that there have been so many maneuvering, so many decisions, the Wilson part of this. I mean, this has written its own book, and this series will write its own story, but it really will be defined by Ovechkin and Holtby and the star players on one side or the other because that's the way this works in sports once it gets to a championship level, right? Like, the Ovechkin has shined during this period of time. Kuznetsov and even Burakovsky in Game 7, who has not shined throughout the series, had his moment as well. I mean, Wilson was running around like a battering ram the other night. All of these guys can own a little piece of this in a lot of ways because a lot of these guys have stepped up and played really, really high level of hockey at various points during this playoff run.
In the lead up to the Stanley Cup Final, Nestor, I tend to agree with you. Best tend to neutralize best. In the Stanley Cup Final now, with these guys being the thoroughbreds that they are, I fully do expect a rested Alex Ovechkin off of 4 days rest in Game 1 and Evgeny Kuznetsov and Tom Wilson. I expect them to be really tough to cover. And vice versa. I expect Vegas's top line, Marchessault, Carlson, Smith, with more than a week's rest, to be awfully tough to cover. So this, if I had it in my heart of hearts, I really want Alex Ovechkin to have that transcendent couple of weeks. He's been brilliant. Kuznetsov's been even better, in my opinion. Holtby has been terrific since he's been handed the reins. All those stories that you talked about, the physicality of Game 6 in the Tampa series, I thought that was amazing. For football fans, I mean, that was football on skates. There were a whole bunch of linebackers and strong safeties running around that night. You're going to see that to a degree in this series. The thing with Vegas is it's hard to hit what you can't catch. So they are so quick and so speedy that Washington's defense, which I think has been the key to the last 6-7 weeks, Washington's defensive posture, especially in the neutral zone, is what's going to matter most. But more than likely, like you had said and intimated, who's going to rise up and come from off the radar? It was Andre Burakovsky in Game 7 against Tampa. Who is that in this next round? Is it Chandler Stevenson? Is it Devontae Smith-Pelly? Is it Lars Eller? We've seen all of those guys have that reaction earlier in the series. Is it going to be somebody like Michael Kempny? Is it Christian Djoos off the back end? there are going to be unlikely heroes in the next couple of weeks. There has to be for you to win.
I say Brett Connolly. That's what I say. But I've been
There
calling
you go.
that all along.
And there's someone who I thought was noticeably quiet against his old team. But that's a great pick, Nestor, because he has the ability to spark that offense.
Well, and I'm always with Jay Beagle because that's my dog. But Joe Beninati joins us here. Joe B, PXP. He's out on Twitter. He's going to be all over the NBC Sports coverage, pregame, in-game, after-game, all that stuff, but not calling the action as we know him to be doing during the regular season. And, behind all of this is slaying the demons of Pittsburgh, and then all the old goons and the Rangers come back in the following series, and even Tortorella earlier on. Now at the end of this is Marc-Andre Fleury, right? Like, you talk about the Wicked Witch of the West coming back right here. And, the guy that still represents all that Pittsburgh stuff. And then you have the other side of McPhee as well. The storylines are here, but Fleury is going to play the biggest role in all of this because it'll either go past him or it won't. And we know what it feels like when it doesn't.
It's an amazing way to end the script, though, isn't it? Considering what you just said, to have him be the last piece, keeping you from the mountaintop, I think it's perfect. And for whatever reasons, at age 33 or so, I want to say he's 33 years old, he is still as quick as a cat. And he is, I think, by far, if you were to pick a Conn Smythe Trophy winner for the playoff MVP up until now, it's got to be Marc-Andre Fleury. His numbers are devastating through 3 rounds with the Golden Knights. He is, for Vegas fans, as lovable a character as you'll find. He loves the sport so much. He has so much fun playing it. He wears a big, huge smile underneath that mask. And for Caps fans, that smile is a smirk. And for Caps fans, that smile has always been pointing a finger back at you saying, you're not good enough to beat me. Well, here's the chance. Here's the chance to really, I think, put away one of those last and largest of demons.
I'm going to hear that. Fleury. Yeah, we're going to be hearing that down at the rink. Any thought about a 7 in Vegas? That the Caps for so long chasing President's trophies to have that right to start it. It's going to be 100 out in Vegas to start the week here, Joe. We'll get into this thing, and I guess the common thought is just come back 1-1. By the time the thing gets back into the rink in DC next weekend. But this is. This is the time where you're like, well, this is what you get when you're not the best team. That you don't get to begin it at home because the Caps felt like that was their birthright for a couple of years, right?
It was so weird to actually think before the Tampa series, oh, wait, we have to go on the road?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really unusual because they've been a President's Trophy winner 2 years running, storming into the playoffs as a Metro Division champ and as an Eastern Conference regular season champ. You didn't think you had to go on the road to see Tampa, and they did. And boy, did they play well in those first 2 games down there. And, you'd be extremely greedy to want both out of Vegas. You're exactly right, though. You want to go in and take one of those 2. And more than likely, it's normally that first one. During the feeling out process, if you're going to surprise the home team in a best of 7, it usually happens in Game 1. I'm just curious to see how both teams react off of the amount of rest that they're going to get. I don't think, if memory serves, I don't think Vegas was very good in Game 1 against Winnipeg. I believe it was on the road, though. They had to go to Winnipeg. But in Game 1, after a little bit of a layoff, they got rid of San Jose pretty quickly. They weren't very good. They'll be on 8 days rest by the time they see the Caps on Monday. Hopefully they won't be as sharp, and maybe Washington can stick it to them right away.
Everybody's got to be sharp here over the next couple of weeks. Joe Beninati will be, along with Locker and Alan May, the whole team, Rob Carlin, all getting together on NBC Sports, doing pregame, in-game, after-game, and bouncing around Vegas and Washington back and forth. This is exactly what we want to be doing on Memorial Day weekend, Joe Beninati.
Can't do it any better than that.
Give me 3 more just like it, and we'll see how this thing turns out. I will be seeing you on both coasts. It's always a pleasure to be joined by you and have you on the program. We love your work so much. Keep up the great work out there, and let's see what it looks like to lift that Stanley Cup, my friend.
Oh, that'd be nice, Nestor. Thanks for spending some time with me.
Joe Beninati, Joe B, PXP. Make sure I get that right. PXP out on Twitter, the official Twitter account of NBC Sports Washington's Joe Beninati. There you have it right there. You can also find them out at NBCS Washington as well. They're going to be covering all things back and forth. They do a fun job of bringing hockey to life for everybody out there. And I know we're going to turn some folks into fans of the good old hockey game. It's the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I'm in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world, including Las Vegas, where Ed Frankovic and I will be bringing you action all week long and then back to D.C. and then perhaps back to Vegas again next week. I expect the series to linger longer. A couple of weeks of Stanley Cup Final mayhem, madness, promise, disappointment, despair, and in the end, glory. We hope. Glory beyond our reach. Nasty at WNST.net, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live right here on our Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.